Hello? My girlfriend said, "You drove me to it. You were always working." I replied, "You're right." Then I left her and kept working on building my business. She found out about the payout the same week I found out about him. She got nothing. I'm Alex, 31M. My girlfriend, Jenna, is 28F. We've been together just over 4 years, living together for the last 2. From the outside, we looked solid. Shared apartment, shared friends, joint Costco trips. The boring adult stuff that's supposed to mean you're building something. The problem, according to Jenna, was me. More specifically, my work. I own a small logistics software company. Nothing glamorous. Long hours, lots of stress, no off switch. I've been trying to get it off the ground for years, and for the most part, she said she supported it. At least, that's what she told other people. At home, it was different. You're always working. You're never present. I feel like I'm dating your laptop. That was her greatest hits album. She said it with this sharp, exhausted tone, like I was a burden she'd generously been carrying. If I stayed late, she'd sigh dramatically. If I took a call during dinner, she'd roll her eyes and push her plate away. Any success I had was met with, "Must be nice," instead of congratulations. I tried to adjust. I blocked off evenings. I stopped checking emails in bed. I told myself this was what compromise looked like. But the complaints never stopped. They just shifted. You're here, but you're not really here. You don't get how lonely it is. I shouldn't have to beg my boyfriend for attention. What she never acknowledged was that the apartment, the vacations, the lifestyle she liked to post online all came from the same thing she resented: my work. About 3 months ago, she started staying out later. Drinks with coworkers. Girls' night that ran long. When I asked questions, she snapped back that I was being controlling, that I didn't trust her, that my insecurity was exhausting. I believed her. Or at least, I wanted to. Looking back, that's the part that scares me most. Not that she changed, but how easily I accepted the version of events where everything was somehow my fault. Because the week she told me, "You drove me away by choosing work over me," was the same week I learned there was someone else. I didn't find out the way people imagine. No lipstick on a collar. No dramatic confession. It was smaller than that, which somehow made it worse. It started with a name I hadn't heard before: Mark. She mentioned him casually one night while scrolling on her phone. "Mark from work is so dumb," she said, laughing. I didn't think much of it. There was always someone from work who was so dumb or so annoying, yet somehow always texting her. Then I noticed how often his name came up. "Mark said this. Mark thinks that. Mark gets it." When I walked into the room, she'd tilt her phone away without realizing she was doing it. If I asked who she was talking to, the answer came too fast. "Just work stuff." One night, I stayed up later than usual finishing a proposal. She thought I'd gone to bed. I heard her in the kitchen, pacing, whispering into her phone. Not flirting exactly. Something softer. Intimate in a way that doesn't need raised voices. When she came back into the bedroom and saw me awake, her face hardened instantly. "Why are you still working?" she snapped. That was her defense. Anger, not guilt. A few days later, she picked a fight over nothing. I forgot to take the trash out. She exploded. Told me I was selfish. That she felt invisible. That any woman would have left by now. Then she said it. "I wouldn't have needed attention from someone else if you were actually around." I didn't even respond right away. My brain lagged behind the sentence, like it didn't want to catch up. "Someone else?" I asked. She crossed her arms, already annoyed, already righteous. "Oh my God, don't make this dramatic. It wasn't like that." That's when she told me. She hadn't slept with him yet, she said. Not at first. They just talked. He listened. He made her feel wanted. And then one night, after another one of your late nights, it crossed a line. And then came the line I can't get out of my head. "You drove me to it. You were always working." She said it calmly, like a diagnosis. Like this was the obvious conclusion any reasonable person would reach. I felt something in me go quiet. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just nodded once and said, "You're right." Her face changed immediately. Confused. Relieved. Almost smug. That's when I stood up, grabbed my laptop, and went back to work, already knowing I wasn't coming back to her. After I said, "You're right," she relaxed. That's the part that still messes with me. She started explaining herself like the argument was over. Like I'd finally accepted my role in the story she'd been telling herself. She said things like, "I didn't want it to happen," and, "You know how lonely I've been." She even added, "I knew you'd understand once you stopped being defensive." I nodded along, barely hearing her. Something had shifted. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Just clarity. That night, I slept on the couch. She didn't protest. In the morning, she acted normal. Too normal. She made coffee, asked if I wanted eggs, complained about traffic. At one point she said, "I'm glad we talked. I feel lighter." I didn't correct her. Over the next few days, I did exactly what I said I would. I worked. Longer hours. More focus. No guilt. I stopped trying to fix us and poured everything into the business. It was strange how easy that part suddenly felt. Like removing a constant background noise. She noticed, of course. "You're really leaning into work now," she said one evening, half joking, half accusatory. "I told you," I replied. "You were right." She didn't like that answer as much the second time. What she didn't know was that things were finally moving. Quietly. The deal I'd been chasing for almost 2 years was nearing the finish line. Lawyers involved. Numbers that didn't feel real yet. I hadn't told her. Not out of spite, more like instinct. At the same time, pieces started clicking into place about Mark. I checked the phone bill. Long calls. Late nights. I stopped asking questions and started listening. She slipped up once and said she'd been at his place, then corrected herself to his building. Small lies stacked on top of bigger ones. One night, she didn't come home at all. Texted me at 2 a.m. saying she crashed at a friend's. No apology. No explanation. That was the night I started packing my important stuff. Not furniture. Not clothes. Documents. Hard drives. The things you take when you're not planning on coming back. The week ended with 2 revelations. I found out who he was, and she found out my company was about to pay out. Those discoveries didn't happen at the same time, but they landed with the same weight. And only one of us was about to be very, very disappointed. I found out who he was on a Tuesday afternoon, in the most boring way possible. I was reviewing expenses for the business when a name popped up in an email thread Jenna had forwarded me weeks earlier, an invite to a team happy hour. I'd ignored it at the time. Now I clicked it out of idle curiosity. Mark R. Product partnerships. Same company. Same floor. I didn't feel rage. I felt stupid for ever doubting my instincts. I did a quick LinkedIn search. There he was. Same age as me. Same type of grin. One of those guys who writes things like passionate about connection in his bio. Recently divorced. Of course. That night, I didn't confront her. I asked one simple question. "So how's Mark?" She froze. Just for a second. Long enough. "Why?" she asked, immediately defensive. "No reason," I said. "You mention him a lot." She laughed, but it was forced. "You're imagining things. God, you really are obsessed lately." Obsessed. Right. 2 days later, my lawyer called. The deal closed faster than expected. Acquisition. Clean numbers. Life-changing money. Not billionaire money, but enough that I sat in my car afterward and stared at the steering wheel for a full 5 minutes. I didn't tell Jenna. That night, she came home late again. This time, she didn't bother with excuses. She dropped her bag, kicked off her shoes, and said, "We need to talk." She told me she was confused. That she loved me, but wasn't sure she was in love anymore. That my ambition was intimidating. That Mark made her feel seen. Then she said something that sealed it. "I think we should take a break. I need space to figure out what I want." I nodded. Calm. Almost polite. "That's probably for the best," I said. She looked surprised. "You're okay with that?" "Yeah," I replied. "You were right. I've been focusing on the wrong things." She smiled. Relieved again. Like she just won something. The next morning, while she was at work, his work, I signed a lease for a new place. I moved my things quietly over the weekend. Left behind anything that wasn't mine. On Sunday night, I left my key on the counter and sent one text. "I'm giving you the space you asked for." She didn't respond until the next day. That was also the day she learned the payout was real, and that the break was permanent. She found out through someone else. Of course she did. I was already in my new place when my phone started blowing up. Missed calls. Texts stacked on top of each other. The tone shifted fast, from casual to frantic. "Is this true? Why didn't you tell me? We need to talk. Now." Apparently, news travels fast when money is involved. A mutual friend congratulated me publicly. Someone at her office connected the dots. Mark didn't know either, which I found oddly satisfying. I didn't respond right away. I finished what I was doing. Ate dinner. Took a shower. I wasn't angry anymore, and that scared me more than rage ever could. When I finally answered, I kept it short. "Yeah, it's true." There was a pause on the line. Then her voice, suddenly soft. "Careful, Alex. I had no idea things were that serious for you. I wish you'd shared that with me." I almost laughed. "You said my work pushed you away?" I replied. "I figured I should keep doing it." She pivoted immediately. "That's not what I meant. You know that." We were just going through a rough patch. A rough patch that involved another man. She asked if we could meet. Said she missed me. Said she'd made a mistake. Said things with Mark were complicated. That one word told me everything. I don't think that's a good idea, I said. Her tone sharpened. So that's it. You just walk away after everything? Everything. Like loyalty was a shared asset she hadn't already liquidated. I didn't walk away, I said calmly. I accepted what you told me. She went quiet. Then came the part she probably rehearsed. I stood by you when you had nothing. When you were working nonstop and barely making rent. And now, when things finally pay off, you're cutting me out? There it was. The entitlement wrapped in nostalgia. You didn't stand by me, I replied. You waited me out. She accused me of being cold, of punishing her, of choosing money over love. I didn't argue. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said, and meant it. She cried. Then she got angry. Then she asked about the apartment, about the furniture, about what she was owed. That was when I realized she still thought there was something left to negotiate. There wasn't. And she was about to learn that the same week I learned exactly how replaceable I'd been to her. The switch from sadness to calculation was almost impressive. 2 days after our last call, Jenna showed up at my old place to grab a few things. She didn't ask where I was staying now. She didn't need to. She still thought this was temporary. A pause. A misunderstanding. She texted me while standing in the hallway I no longer lived in. We should sit down and figure this out like adults. I didn't respond. An hour later, I got another message. I talked to a lawyer friend. We were basically common law. We built a life together. There it was. The real conversation. She started listing things she'd sacrificed. Times she'd supported me. How my success was built during our relationship, therefore shared. She said it carefully, like she'd practiced the phrasing. I replied once. There's nothing to figure out. She lost it. Accused me of hiding money. Of planning this behind her back. Of emotionally abandoning her the same way I supposedly always had. She even brought up Mark, said I pushed her into his arms, and now I was punishing her for surviving. I let her talk herself out. Then I sent one final message. I found out about him the same week you found out about the payout. Silence. Minutes passed. Then, you went through my things. No, I replied. You weren't subtle. That's when the tone changed again. Panic this time. She asked if Mark had told me. If someone at work had said something. She asked what I knew. How much I knew. If I was talking to anyone. I didn't answer any of it. Instead, I blocked her. Friends reached out over the next few days. Some neutral. Some clearly sent on her behalf. She's not doing well. She feels blindsided. She just wants closure. Closure is what people ask for when the door is already shut. The last thing I heard, through someone else, was that things with Mark hadn't gone how she expected. Apparently, he wasn't looking for anything serious. Apparently, he liked her better when she was unavailable. I didn't feel smug. I felt free. Because the truth was simple. She blamed me for working too much. I agreed. I kept working. And for the first time, it was only for me. The quiet after blocking her was unsettling at first. No buzzing phone. No accusations. No late-night spirals disguised as just wanting to talk. For 4 years, my life had a constant undercurrent of reacting to her moods. Suddenly, there was nothing to react to. I didn't realize how heavy that had been until it was gone. A week passed. Then 2. Work was easy. Not effortless, but clean. Meetings without rushing. Decisions without second-guessing whether they'd turn into another argument about priorities. I slept better. Ate better. Even my friends noticed. You seem lighter, one of them said over drinks. I shrugged. I stopped arguing with someone who already made up their mind. I thought that was the end of it. I really did. Then she emailed me. Not from her usual account. From a burner. Subject line, please. She wrote a long message. Apologies stacked on apologies. She said she'd been scared. That Mark was a mistake. That she didn't recognize herself lately. That seeing me succeed forced her to confront things she didn't like about her own life. She said she never meant to hurt me. The part that stuck out was buried in the middle. I just assumed we'd work it out, especially now. Now, there it was again. She didn't ask how I was. She asked where I was emotionally. Whether I'd be open to rebuilding. Whether we could at least meet for coffee and talk things through like we used to. I stared at the screen longer than I expected to. Not because I was tempted, but because I was disappointed. I realized she still didn't understand why it was over. In her mind, the betrayal was a problem to solve. A phase. Something outweighed by history and convenience. She still thought access to me was negotiable. I didn't respond. 2 days later, I heard she'd moved out of our old place. Couldn't afford it alone. Mark didn't step in. Neither did I. Someone asked me if I felt bad. I didn't. Because the truth is, I lost her long before she cheated. I just didn't admit it until she handed me a reason I couldn't ignore. And walking away wasn't revenge. It was alignment. With myself. A month later, I ran into her by accident. Same grocery store. Same aisle. Different lives. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, just less certain. The sharp confidence she used to weaponize was dulled around the edges. When she saw me, her face lit up for half a second before she remembered she wasn't entitled to that reaction anymore. "Hey," she said, cautious. "You look good." "Thanks," I replied. And meant it. She told me she'd left her job. Said things there had gotten awkward. I didn't ask why. We both knew. She said she was thinking of moving back home for a while. To reset. Then she asked the question she'd been circling since we locked eyes. "Do you ever regret it?" she said. Walking away like that. I thought about it. About the nights I swallowed resentment. About the way she made my ambition sound like neglect. About how easily she blamed me for choices she made with open eyes. "No," I said. "Not really." Her jaw tightened. "Must be nice. To just upgrade your life and leave." I almost corrected her. Almost explained that I didn't upgrade. I simplified. But I knew better by now. She wasn't listening for understanding. She was listening for reassurance. "I didn't leave," I said calmly. "You told me who you were. I believed you." She scoffed. "That's not fair." "Neither was cheating," I replied. She looked away. Silence stretched between us, heavy but clean. Before she left, she said, "You know, I really did love you." I nodded. I know. That was the truth. She loved me in the way people love stability. Potential. What someone could become for them. Just not enough to protect it when it stopped being convenient. As she walked away, I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just distance. And that's when I knew I was finally done. Because indifference isn't bitterness. It's peace. The funny thing about peace is how quiet it is. No dramatic victory lap. No moment where the universe applauds your restraint. Life just keeps going. Better if you let it. A few weeks after the grocery store run-in, my lawyer finalized the last paperwork from the acquisition. Money landed where it was supposed to. Clean. Untangled. Mine. I didn't celebrate the way people expect you to. No bottle service. No announcement post. I ordered takeout, sat on my balcony, and watched the city do its thing. That night, I thought about the version of me from a year ago. The guy apologizing for being driven. The guy shrinking his ambition to keep someone comfortable. The guy who thought love meant explaining himself over and over until he sounded guilty enough to be believable. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Jenna tried one last time after that. Not directly. She messaged my sister. Then a friend. Then someone I barely talked to anymore. Same script, different mouths. She'd grown. She understood now. She just wanted a chance to show me she wasn't that person anymore. But growth that only happens after consequences isn't growth. It's negotiation. The last update I heard was that Mark had started seeing someone else from work. Someone younger. Someone less complicated. Jenna spiraled for a bit after that. Called it unfair. Said she felt used. I didn't comment. Because the irony was too clean to touch. She told me I drove her to cheat because I was always working. I agreed. I kept working. And in doing so, I walked straight out of a relationship where I was valued for what I provided, not who I was. I didn't take anything from her when I left. She just didn't get to take anything from me. And that difference matters more than people think. I'm writing this a few months out, mostly because people keep asking me how I feel now. Like there's supposed to be a final emotion you land on after something like this. Closure. Vindication. Triumph. It's none of that. It's quiet. My days are simple in a way they never were before. I wake up when I want. I work because I want to, not because I'm trying to outrun someone else's resentment. I don't explain my schedule to anyone. I don't apologize for being driven. I don't downplay wins to keep the peace. Sometimes I think about that moment, the exact one, when she said, "You drove me to it. You were always working." If I'd argued, maybe we'd still be limping along. If I'd begged, maybe she'd have stayed longer. If I'd promised to change, maybe she would have forgiven herself. But I didn't do any of that. I said, "You're right." And I meant it. Because she was right about one thing. I was always working towards something. She just wasn't part of where I was going anymore. The week she found out about the payout, she expected a conversation, a negotiation, a reassessment of her value in my life now that the numbers had changed. Instead, she got silence. She got nothing. Not because I wanted revenge, but because the version of me who would have shared that future with her didn't exist anymore. She helped kill it. Slowly. Casually. with entitlement disguised as honesty. I didn't win. I just stopped losing. And if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's simple. When someone blames you for the consequences of their choices, believe them the first time and keep walking. Bye-bye.